Hey friends, Sean from Draft Therapy here, and on today's review for you, the Christmas tree isn't the only thing getting lit this season, am I right? Eggnog is a 6.7% milkshake style IPA from Roak Brewing Company in Marshall, Michigan. When I'm thinking of what I'm going to say in the intros of these videos, I try to tie in something about the beer. So admittedly, I Googled sayings about eggnog, and the line I used was just so stupid, I figured I had to just throw it in there. All right, so coming clean, I've never had real homemade eggnog, and as a kid, I liked the stuff in the jug that you'd buy at the store because basically it's just cereal milk. But when I saw that Roak was putting out an Eggnog Milkshake IPA, I figured it could be borderline good or not. But either way, it'll be worth a try. Let's take a look at the label. We'll get into it. But first, I'd like to thank my executive producers, Ryan Berry, Rob Santana, and Eric Latowski for helping bring this review to you today. If you'd like to become a producer, help out the channel, or maybe just buy me a beer, take a look at my Patreon at patreon.com/draft_therapy, where you can get early access to these videos and a few other special perks available only to patrons. So, we're going to take a look at this label here. This is following the same kind of design that Roak has been doing for the last couple of years, since their last redesign. It says Roak across the entire label in their kind of, I don't really know what to call this, but it's kind of like a line drawing. And then within that, it has another drawing of a kind of a milkshake glass with a swirl coming out of it, a milkshake, and some holly and some mistletoe or something like that along those lines. Those, the red and the green stuff that you see on holiday stuff. And on the side here, it says, a medley of eggnog and spice notes. The blending of lactose and wheat gives this beer a smooth, velvety body, perfect sipping holiday IPA. Alcohol by volume is 6.7%. It is 60 IBU. And then it says, brewed and packaged by Roak Brewing Company in Royal Oak, Michigan. As I mentioned in the intro, they are moving their facility to Marshall at the Dark Horse facility. So that's why I said Marshall at the beginning. But when this was made, they were still at the Royal Oak facility. So this was canned on December 3rd, 2020. Today is December 13th, so 10 days ago. So this is fairly fresh. It only seems fitting that I use an IPA glass. So let's go ahead and crack it, put a nose on it, and get into it. Now, I know I said in the intro that it could be good, could be borderline good. It could be really good. Eggnog IPA just sounds odd to me. So let's go ahead and put a nose on the can here. Okay, it smells like eggnog. You're getting the nutmeg. There is a citrusy kind of note in there, so that's what would kind of give me the clue that this is an IPA. But it does smell good. I love the smell of eggnog. I don't necessarily like the taste of it much anymore, like the stuff in the jug again, but the smell is always great. So let's go ahead and pour this. Coming out really hazy yellow. Definitely looks like a milkshake style IPA. And pouring it down the middle of this glass. This glass is notorious for building a lot of head. I call it the headmaster glass. I'm only getting about 2 fingers here, and I did pour pretty aggressively. Normally a IPA in this glass would just be, 4 fingers ahead, but this is 2 fingers ahead, very white, as you can see from the overhead. Very dense, very compact, very close, tight-knit bubbles. And if we hold it up to the light here, it is very yellow across the top. As it gets towards the bottom, it's a little bit thinner. I mean, I'm seeing a shadow here, but I'm not seeing anything else besides the shadow of my fingers through the glass. But this is pretty hazy. I would classify this as pretty hazy. So let's go ahead and put a better nose here on the glass. Yeah, I mean, it smells like sweet. It smells like eggnog. If you've ever smelled the jug, the store, eggnog that you get, from Dean or whoever makes it, or maybe Meyer has their own, or Kroger or whoever, Guernsey, somebody like that. It smells like pouring eggnog directly out of one of those cartons into a glass. I do get a faint citrus aroma in there. So again, that's the only thing that kind of clues my brain into thinking this is beer and not eggnog. So and getting a big, huge nutmeg aroma in there too. So let's go ahead and take a shot. Cheers. Mouthfeel is actually pretty light, pretty crisp. It's not really super soft like I would think of most IPAs or New England style IPAs or milkshake IPAs. Let's talk about the flavor because there's a lot going on here, and I can kind of tell some of the flavors that are going on here, but let's take another drink and then I'll talk about that. Actually, the second taste, the mouthfeel does become a little bit lighter, a little bit softer, but that first one, not so much. It was a little bit on the thin side, but now it's kind of, I can kind of see the creaminess, the cloudiness, the pillow kind of softness. The flavor that I'm getting is like a really intense, high, bitter citrus flavor. That's what I'm getting out of the gate. That's the really strong upfront. It tastes like a really very strong citrus, like a lemon zesty oranginess. When I do the swallow, I get bitterness. I get like another bit of citrusy, strong citrus bitterness. But it still has that kind of you can kind of taste the lactose bitterness in it. So the swallow is where I get the bitterness from, and that's typically from my taste, that's where I get a lot of the bitterness from an IPA is on the swallow. Obviously, I don't get it much on the upfront. That's where you get kind of like the flavor, the citrus or whatever kind of flavor they're kind of going for in a Two Hearted. That's where I get that maltiness. On this beer, when I swallow, that's what I'm getting, this lactose kind of bitterness. And for me, I can almost always tell when there's lactose because that's where that bitterness comes through. Lactose is milk sugar, so it's not necessarily artificial, but it tastes, to me, that's like, I always think of lactose as having that kind of artificial bitterness. And then on the swallow, when that lactose bitterness kind of goes through, I get this really, I do start getting, at that point, getting a little bit more of a sweet, sugary, and nutmeg flavor. So that nutmeg it's subtle, it's in there, it's deep, but it's definitely there. I mean, again, it's subtle, but it's definitely in there, and it's deep in there, and that's kind of like the flavor that I'm left with that sits on my tongue after the taste. When the aftertaste starts coming up, that's when that nutmeg and that kind of sugary sweetness kind of come up, and they really meet and match up very well with the citrus, that really strong, lemony, strong citrus kind of flavor that you get at the beginning, the lactose bitterness that comes in, and then that's where that kind of that nutmeg and sugary kind of sweet flavor come in right after all that. Let's get one more taste. Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily would say this is eggnog, or it's really super reminiscent of eggnog. I mean, because I don't think of eggnog as having that citrus flavor, but it is very different. It is something that if you like having kind of, I love strong lemon flavor in things. I love that citrus flavor, that citrus kind of sour flavor, and you get a little bit of that in here. Again, you get a lot of that. I think the wheat that they talk about kind of adds to giving you that thickness, giving you that flavor. I'm only getting the softness, that kind of mouthfeel, like here and there, like once in a while, which is kind of odd. It's not all the time, and I feel like I really have to dig to kind of evaluate and get that kind of mouthfeel. I would say that if you are interested in trying something really different, this is something you should try, because it's not really necessarily an eggnog flavor, but it has that citrus kind of quality that kind of tries to mimic the dairy of an eggnog, and then it has that nutmeg flavor, which kind of comes in, that sweetness. I think the lactose probably adds to that sweetness, and then the nutmeg flavor is really pleasant on the tail end. I would like to, I don't know how the heck you would do it, but I would love to see more of that, of a milky kind of quality at the beginning, and then have that nutmeg and that milk sugar and that sugary kind of flavor on the tail. I don't know how big of batches this was made, but I feel like this is something that, if you're looking for a really experimental kind of beer and you're like, I've heard, eggnog, that sounds kind of crazy, let me try that out, I think this would be a beer for you if you're interested in trying stuff like that. But know going into it that it's going to be very citrusy, very have a little bit of that lactose bitterness. That's where the bitterness comes in, and then you're going to get a nutmeg kind of quality afterwards, which may sound kind of odd, but interestingly enough, this all kind of works together. It is very reminiscent of eggnog. It's obviously not eggnog, but that citrus quality, the wheat kind of flavor that's in there that mixes in, gives it a dairy-like flavor, It's not going to be dairy though. It's not going to be thick, as thick as an eggnog, but it is a very interesting beer to try. So if you're into trying different kind of beers, or maybe you're just tired of the same kind of usual Christmassy, sprucey, you know, celebration type beer that you normally get around the holiday, this is definitely a good one to try out if you want to try a little bit of a break from the norm. And I got to applaud Roak for trying something super out of the box and something that you normally wouldn't think to try together. All right, friends, that has been Eggnog from Roak Brewing Company. Have you had this beer before? Are you adventurous in your beer choices? And if so, what's the craziest flavor combo that you didn't think you'd like, but you actually really enjoyed? Let us know in the comments down below. While you're down there, if you like beer, you might want to subscribe and click that bell, because I'm here talking about beer twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's all for free for viewers just like you. And you might miss your newest favorite if you're not subscribed and getting those notifications. So until next time, I'm Sean from Draft Therapy. Thanks for stopping by. Remember, drink craft beer, support your local breweries wherever they are, and most importantly, don't forget to treat yourself to a little draft therapy. Thanks for watching. Cheers.